How is it? Different.
I'll drop him after it.
You're a whole whipper.
This is what we came to see. Okay. This is what Donnie wanted to see, though. Sorry. There's gotta be a whole family house in here, but damn, it's so tiny I can't believe it. It's totally unreal.
Still wait for it to set up. It's gotta be turned on.
Why did you go ahead of everybody?
I can't walk slow.
This whole area. This is Robert Carter. Purchased his land for his daughter, specified his will that at all times it was controlled Carter's road. Then his grandson, was Carter Burwell, inherited the property. This is supposed to be a symbol of everybody, of their wealth in those days, owning the slaves and all.
I don't have to look.
I can't wait to either. Can't wait to either. It goes fast. Yeah, side road.
I know what I'm doing.
It's been like this since the 1920s. Yeah.
I look, what is, I'm trying to walk in there or what, or no?
Go find out.
It's warm as shit, I know that.
Go inside. This is the model of the house that Colonial built between the years of 1750 and 1755 as a statement are called hyphens. Just as you hyphenate a word, you can hyphenate a house. And 3 18th century buildings are joined by 20th century buildings. So remember, when you're in a hyphen today, it was built in the 1920s. You see the funny, even though they didn't look like that, it is a modern addition to the house. We're going now to walk through. We're going to see this house with the furnishings, paintings, rugs of the McCrae, that last family, a very romanticized version of an 18th century house. The first person to arrive at the door, please knock, and will be invited inside with your calling card, and you're welcome to take pictures while you're in the house.
Longer, and I'm going to collect them as you move to the dock.
A lot of modern furniture. Oh, wow. Wow. And they got the river up there.
We brought you in the landside door, and in the 1930s.
All right, best you can.
You've done just that, and you take the card on to the posting post so you can be properly announced. And in the 18th century, Mr. Bird made an impression, and he would want to continue that impression by bringing his guests in the riverside door. So this would be the first indication that you would have inside his home of what kind of man he was. He was a member of the House of Burgesses, part of that top 2 to 3% of the population that came to rule in the House. And these families would, blacks who've been freed, they're serving in the Virginia legislature. They are also, in many instances, migrating from these rural areas into the more urban centers. And so we have lots of stresses beginning to pull on society. People became fearful that they were going to lose some of these traditional values, and so they became interested in preserving that past. And that's why Mr. and Mrs. Archibald McCrae would come to Carter's Grove to preserve the house and to live here, and to invite guests to come into their home and celebrate that wonderful heritage. So Carter's Grove is a revival of the 18th century and the 19th. The furnishings reflect all of those centuries as well. So they are a collection from a lifetime of travel and planning for a home like this one. You're going to see that the McCrae family is truly a 20th century family, and so they added the modern conveniences by trying to keep them in the 20th century hyphen so that they could maintain the original building. Okay, we have guys who are anxious to move on, right? Okay, you're going to encounter interpreters as you go through the house who will give you information, and we invite you to ask questions and take photographs as you go on. So, if you will, place your cards on the calling card tray here. I think it's called the clothing. Did you get your calling cards for your guests?
Some of you may want to step in just a bit more so that we can fit everywhere. Whether we're talking about the 18th century and the more recent years, whether we're traced living through the 1930s and 40s, who you entertained was important and how you entertained them was equally important. The who in those early days would be those other prominent planting families, Harrison's, Carter's, Bird's, Randolph's, Washington's, Jefferson's, some of the prominent Virginia families. In more recent years, the McRaes were to entertain other prominent people of their time period, the governors of many of the states, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, even some celebrities people like from the motion picture industry, like Walt Disney and Cary Grant were entertained here. And in the 18th century, there arose a tradition of Virginia or Southern hospitality. One way to demonstrate that you were doing well would be to entertain lavishly, and this tradition was carried on and very much upheld in the more recent time period. As you look around the room, the portraits are making a statement about this family's importance and permanence over time. This is Mr. McRae's mother, Ada Montgomery McRae. His grandfather, David McRae, a Scottish immigrant and a physician. And this is his father, John McRae, who was one of the founders and an early president of the Pennsylvania Railroad. That's the man who did the family portraits for me. The young woman here is Mrs. McRae herself. She was the former Mary Corley Johnson of Petersburg, Virginia, so she was a native to this area. I believe that you were hearing that there's a mixture of periods and styles in the furnishings. You see that most definitely here. We're also not sacrificing modern convenience on the altar of living in an older home. We have things like electric lights and central heating. And it's appropriate since the McRaes were living here year-round. As you look at the table and think about the people dining here, you get the impression that this is a lifestyle involving some leisure and luxury, and it requires a support staff to have that kind of life, doesn't it? Especially in a home this large. And so the McRaes had paid black servants, much as the girls had slaves in an earlier time. We'll be hearing some more, incidentally, about those who worked here, as well as those who lived here as you continue your visit and see some of the behind-the-scenes areas of the management. The next room you'll be seeing was used as a less formal dining space. Then you're going to go into the connecting link, the hyphen, where you will see the morning porch and the butler's pantry, a very large pantry. It is, I think, my entire kitchen and dining room would fit in there with space left over. And then you'll be pausing in the kitchen with Bill just beyond. So you're welcome to go on through.
Scott?
What we're using to cook is only producing enough heat to cook the food and not to have everything else in the room in the process. We have different ideas of cleanliness and sanitation, and we begin to decorate our kitchens, put up some wallpapers, some knickknacks, make a breakfast nook. And that's exactly what's going on here. What's being used to decorate this kitchen is cooking and other household implements of an earlier time. The spinning wheel, the irons, and the candle molds wouldn't even have had a credit in an 18th century kitchen, but if you think about it, what other place is going to be appropriate to display them in this fashion? They're really too simple and rustic for a formal area in a home like this one. And then there was entertaining going on here. And for her, the days were very long. A cook would typically work from 6:30 in the morning to 8:30 or 9 at night, and the pay was not very good. And there simply weren't other jobs out there. Being a domestic worker was often the only kind of job a black woman could expect to get in this part of the country. And so I'm sure it was a very difficult life. The next room you'll be seeing was used as a servants' hall. I like to think of the conversations that Nancy, the cook, and Edna Washington, the housekeeper, must have had about them in praise of their many illustrious sisters. Theirs was a physically very close existence and a socially very separate one. Then you're going to go up the servants' staircase where you'll see the housekeeper's bathroom and bedroom. Beyond that, you'll be in a very elaborate room over the hyphen with the white marble floor and pink and white carpet. That's the guest bath. Then you're going to pass through the guest room, and you'll be meeting Bill again upstairs in the office. So you're welcome to go on through.
Do this. Never make it. That's what you call a minor bathroom. Totally. Family reference.
This is our next group coming in? Yes. Be right with you, folks. Let's have a look and see something going down. Get the river from up here. About 70 feet above that river, and that river is about 3.5 miles wide, by the way, right here. Is that about the end of our line, or do we want to do it? Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Bill. I'm talking about the restoration of this mansion. And these people stored not only the mansion, but some of the old stories and legends about this place, about these places. The other mansions on the river here. During the Revolutionary War, some British Army officers spent the night on the floor in front of the second floor here. In the morning, their commanding officer came into the hall downstairs, shouted up that beautiful black walnut staircase, and these folks to come down. Son, don't get on that desk, please, if you would. This is a museum, and we don't have things behind glass. We ask you please not to touch things. We'd appreciate it. Won't even let me touch it. They came, I mentioned it was on there. They spent the night here on the second floor. And he called up the staircase the next morning for these gentlemen to come down. They didn't hear it. They lost his temper and went out in front and got on his horse. He rode the horse into the hall and up the staircase. All the way up, he drew his saber and started slashing the banister. Now, when you go down, hold your hand on the banister and see if you can feel those saber cuts. Now, the bottom line here is I told you these were stories and legends. Remember, the man who cut the banister was named Bannister. His name was Colonel Bannister Stark. So Bannister cut the banister. Maybe there's a connection somewhere, but something cut it. Now, the other story is, during colonial days, a couple of young men used to come out in Williamsburg with the young ladies. And at the bottom of the stairs, the tour takes you right into a beautiful, beautiful parlor. These two young men didn't seem to show much promise. One of them was a surveyor who taught himself. The other one was a rather indifferent college student from William and Mary, and they both proposed marriage to young ladies in that room down there. Different young ladies, different times. They were Now, the young ladies may have regretted it later because one of those young men was George Washington, and the other one was Thomas Jefferson. The two future presidents were refused in that room, and Mrs. McCrae called it the refusal room. One of Virginia's most famous and most beautiful rooms. Now, before you go down and feel the saber cuts, I would invite you to look into Mrs. McCrae's bedroom here to my right, and through the arch. Mrs. McCrae's bedroom, and I call your attention. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer. Maybe right into the refusal room. You sure feel those saber cuts now? Look at that story. Well, the elevator. Thank you for that. The spiral staircase that's not attached. No visible support, apparently. That's what the building cut out.
I got it.
That's right.
How am I supposed to know that?
Come through the 1930s sitting room. Of course, the first room you came into is what Mrs. McCrae called the refusal room. Now you're in what they used as a smoking room, a place for Mr. McCrae to bring his gentlemen guests after dinner parties for brandy and cigars. What we suspect was that this was originally the laundry, standing separate from the 18th century mansion. And all of us are standing in the space that was added when the wall was moved out to raise the roof and create two additional guest bedrooms above. Those bedrooms are reached by those small stairways over there. So you clearly see 20th century changes in an 18th century space filled with mixture of styles of furniture, all part of the way in which they enjoyed using the house. Probably the most revolutionary object in this room is that 1937 Bakelite Emerson radio on the tavern table there. Mrs. McCrae could listen to her former house guest, Franklin Roosevelt, who was here actually just 55 years ago, minus one day. They had luncheon here with the McCraes in 1936, and we suspect she probably often listened to his fireside chats on that radio, while her servants upstairs were listening in the housekeeper's apartment to announcements about jobs at the Newport News shipyard, where first of all Lawrence, their chauffeur, left to work, earning better wages there than he could earn here, and very soon many of their other servants left to work there. So life was changing for the McCraes in the 40s, and of course a lot of things were changing, rumors of war in Europe, and Virginia life was changing because of things like the poll tax, the examination to register voters, all of those things. We hope that you go to Wilson hometown. The tape recordings there are well, Hugh, the archaeologist. He'll describe all the 17th century changes to
The section.
Yes.
You go to the bottom of the top of the hill and take a real good thing of the gardens and, go back and find him. This is it. This to me is almost like a real southern plantation. Well, that's good. But when they say, see, when they secured that business, I wonder how much more they put on what the films were saying. They weren't feeling. You know? Because they're up a lot. What? Yeah. President. Right. How about that? Oh, yeah. What do you send him like Tom check? You got sleep. You believe in sleep? Maybe over there.
It takes about 5 seconds to run.
It doesn't take 30 seconds.
Yes, it takes time.
Come on down here in the yard. Good.
Not a good day to be out on I-64 around the Hampton Roads Bridge.
Right now.